This week we have on two basement heroes. From lesser known comics, the creators of Condrey, writer Patrick Hickey Jr. and artist Kieran Quinn. Welcome to a fresh episode of Basement Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John, and I am the host of this podcast, or vodcast, really, if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But this is a brand new podcast where I am basically talking about everything comics, everything from the creators to how the books are made to up until they're published and turned into the actual books that you guys love. With me today, I have two creators from one book called Condrey, published by Lesser Known Comics. Patrick and Kieran, how you guys doing?
Excellent.
Doing great, man. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us on your first episode.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on.
Sure.
Like I was saying, this show is basically to just go beyond the panels of a comic, and talk to the guys who are responsible for creating everything. This is great because I love comics. I've always loved comics. I'm, as you can tell from the room, I'm a big DC guy.
Big DC guy.
Yeah, see?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I like DC. I love DC, but I'm more of a Marvel guy.
Oh, see. I love Marvel, but DC all the way. DC
my favorite
all
DC
the way.
stuff, though, is Vertigo stuff. Like,
Vertigo?
I love
yeah.
the harder hitting
Constantine.
Constantine,
Right.
the
Hellblazer.
Nocturnes, and Watchmen, V for Vendetta.
Oh, yeah.
That's my
good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I have grown up, reading comic books my whole life. When I was younger, it's funny because I'm an artist myself. Those are mine. But when I was growing up, I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to work for DC. I wanted to work for Walt Disney, and I grew up drawing all the cartoons, Elmer Fudd, Bugs Bunny, that's stuff like that. But I don't think it wasn't until maybe I was 12 or 13. No, I'm sorry. 1993, when they killed off Superman, was when I really started getting heavy into comics. And
Huge moment.
Yeah.
That's
a Superman.
Pivotal.
Yeah.
Like, I to this day, if they release like a new book that like a huge graphic novel of the death of Superman, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So I have multiple copies, and but so then, like, once that series came out, I started reading comics more and more, and I wanted to be a comic book artist, and for me, it was all about drawing the superhero guys, not so much, the nitty gritty guys like Condrey.
Yeah.
But it was more the guys in tights flying around kind of thing, and
Underwear outside the pants kind of guys.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it got to a point where one of my mom's friends got me a tour of Marvel Comics in the city.
Yeah.
I was actually before they moved out to California.
Yeah.
And I think I am the only person in Marvel history to walk into that building wearing a Superman hat.
It's like, hey, Stan.
Yeah. Yeah.
How you doing?
And during the tour, Spider-Man actually showed up. And in full costume, this guy in a full costume, Spider-Man.
Nice.
And I have a picture of him hanging on my shoulders,
awesome.
wearing the Superman hat. And
God.
he's like, hey, nice hat. I'm like, yeah, thanks. Do you like it?
That's awesome.
But, so then it just grew from there. I love comics. I practiced every day drawing, and, that's the rest is history for me. But
Sure.
You guys, man, you guys have achieved something that I've always wanted to do. Like, I'm sure, like, little 5-year-old, 10-year-old me is like, wow.
I mean, 30. How old am I? 33-year-old me is like, wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, this is something like I've said on other podcasts before. This comic has been like 20 years in the making.
Right.
Like, I've been like building the universe for this comic like for 20 years, and just like no one like knew about it on my Facebook memories like 2 days ago. Your original character sketches came up 2 years ago. So like we've been working together for 2 years, you know? And there were months sometimes like where we didn't, you know, talk, and I would just be like, dude, I'm pitching it. I'm trying. I'm fucking trying. I'm trying to get to as many people as possible. And guy never gave up on me, you know?
Good.
Like, and I told him several times, I'm trying. I'm sorry.
That's funny because I know how much of a workhorse he is, you know, but you know, I would imagine, like, is he constantly texting and calling you about like ideas and what's going to happen?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's days where it's just like, here's an image. I like this. I like that. And yeah, I mean, half the time it's like, okay, take note, you know, or it'll shoot something into my brain and I say, oh, I like this, and then I'll change it, you know.
So it's a collaborative effort.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Everything is
awesome.
Like the cover of Condrey one, I sent him a cover of an old 70s Daredevil.
Yeah.
With a gun being pointed like a daredevil and stuff like that. I'm like, this is really cool. So then Kieran totally made it his own, and it's better than that daredevil cover. Like,
nice.
I have no qualms saying that his cover is sexier than the daredevil cover. You know, so
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you know, but it's just like, and the thing is too, it's like we know each other for a while, but it'll just be like I'll send him like a cover of like the Max, and he'll be like, yeah, I really like the Max, and I'm like, ooh, so now I know what he likes. So it's just like there's this constant back and forth and stuff, and I write quickly, so it's like he's got scripts for we're totally ahead of the game and stuff like that. So it's just like he knows more of the story than anybody else, and like it's a good.
Well, that's great that you pump out the writing like that because you know the turnaround for the books have to be quick.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so you know sometimes I guess you could be waiting on a story or you could be waiting on art.
Well, it's like I've told him before. I'm like, he'll never be in a situation to be waiting on story.
Right.
It won't happen.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I've got too much to draw, or I've got too much to draw as it is. Like he's already like, oh, here's the next one. I'm like, well, I got to do this one first. But, you know, it's good to keep me on my toes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So talk a little bit about where Condrey came from. Like where from the depths of your mind did Condrey come from?
Really, like, and the thing is too, like, I've kind of told this story, but I haven't told it like the way that it deserves to be told. So I think I'll tell it tonight. Like, you deserve this. Like,
thanks,
man. I got in a car accident when I was 18. And my goal was always to be a professional hockey player. Like, that's what I wanted to do. 6'4". You know, I was 225 pounds at the time. Like, I wanted to take a year off of college, like before I started college, and try and walk on to like a Division III hockey program. So like Johnson and Wales or like Niagara, and like Division III SUNY or something like that. So graduate from high school, take off a year. Everything's going good. Like, so we're talking graduated in June. So we got July, August, September, 3 months. Everything's going good. I'm making money. I'm a delivery boy for a pharmacy. So I'm riding the bike all day. And it's like, if you want to play hockey, you need good cardio and stuff. So it's just like, it was perfect. Right. I was working like I was on the bike for like 40 hours a week. You know?
That's good.
It was great. I got hit
Strong
by a car.
legs.
Yeah. And when you want to play hockey, I mean, that's, you know.
That's everything.
Right.
So like I would work at this pharmacy from like 8 to 8, riding the bike all over Borough Park, delivering pharmaceuticals, you know. And then at night I would go to like the schoolyard like 3 blocks away from my house, and I would just take like 500 slap shots. And I would just skate, you know. It was great. I was super happy. Get in a car accident. This guy's double parked. I'm going like 30 miles an hour on the bike. So it's like my ass is up in the air. You know, like I'm not sitting on the bike. I'm going super fast. This guy's double parked, opens up his car door.
Oh, man.
I hit the car door so hard that like the door bent the other way. Like I caught the brunt of the door like right in my chest. And like I just felt my whole like back just like fold in half. It was awful. Oh. So I had a cane for like a year. I was going to physical therapy like 5 times a week. I wasn't going to play hockey anymore. So loved comic books, loved video games. Was on disability, workers' comp and stuff. So now all of a sudden, money's coming in, and I could just sit on my ass and read comic books and play video games and play the guitar and stuff. So that's what I did. And I was just like really, I would want to say depressed, because I don't think I've ever been depressed in my entire life. But I was just kind of angry, you know? Like, shit. like I was so like I felt like I was going to where I needed to be.
Yeah.
You know, and it got taken away from me. So I was like, I need to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a really shitty high school. I went to William E. Grady High School.
Grady.
Yeah, no Lady Grady. That's what they used to call it when I went there. And I had a couple of great English teachers, but no one ever told me that I could write.
Mm.
And I think every like writer goes through like that crappy poetry stage. Like when they're like 16, 17, they're just writing really shitty, crappy poetry. And I went through that. And I had a whole book of really crappy poetry. But then I was just like, I was reading so many comics. We're talking about like Frank Miller, Daredevil, Bendis, like Sam and Twitch, McFarlane Spawn, watching really awful but amazing movies at the same time. So like Heavy Metal, Dune, Highlander.
I love Highlander.
I love Highlander too.
Oh yeah,
it's great. And I already loved like Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and stuff like that. All the Superman movies and shit. So I'm just like,
don't try to come to DC after.
No, like Chris. First off, anything Gene Hackman is in is amazing, and like Gene Hackman is the best Lex Luthor as far as I'm concerned. Like no one even comes close. So
oh, you don't like Michael Rosenbaum or?
I just love Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman could play a log of shit, and I would watch it. It would be like the greatest movie ever.
Gene Hackman is a log of shit. He's nutty. He's creamy. He's Gene Hackman.
Like it would just be amazing. But so I'm like, I could create a character, and I just started like trying to find like a character that I could build lore around, where it could be like he was more than the sum of his parts, and kind of like each issue you find out something new, something different about him. And I mean, it's like a tired old cliche that like, oh, his father's killed kind of thing, but it just works.
Right.
So it's just like, I kind of went with that. The original scripts are a lot more grittier.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like there's a scene,
cool.
Like, no, it's like stuff where like Mark would probably be like, we can't publish that. Like,
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Condrey's dad is like he's a police officer. No one knows this yet. I mean, you know this, but like
Condrey, it was in the book.
Yeah, but not like in the the whole super backstory and stuff. His dad's killed by this gang that like is infiltrating like New York City. Like they've gone like legit in a way. So like they're like a gang, but like they like run legit business. Like they're just destroying New York City from the inside out. They're like a cancer, So, but like Condrey's father stops like the gang originally, and like, but then he's like shot in like one of these things, and like he's not paralyzed, but like he can't be a cop anymore. So he's just like miserable, and he turns to drugs and alcohol. And there's like a scene where he just like beats Condrey's mom and beats him and stuff like that, and it's just like really fucked up. And I grew up with a lot of that. Like my dad's an alcoholic, so it's just like I've seen some crazy shit growing up,
Right.
And it was like cathartic in a way. It's just like this guy wasn't defined by having parents that weren't perfect, So it's like I toned it down a lot. Like once we got to like where we are now, to the point where like it's insinuated, it's there, but it's not as raw and gritty and in your face. And also like Condrey is a little bit more less brash, I would say. In some of the scripts, I'm like he calls Sarita like bitch,
Yeah.
And it's just like,
that's not so bad.
it's not, but it's just like, I just think I don't know, maybe I've toned down because I'm like a father now and stuff like that, but it's just like, he could be mean to her and not call her bitch, like he could have a tiny bit of respect for her, like just a tiny bit, so it's just like, I've kind of altered like certain things, like kind of like roughed, smoothed over some of the edges and stuff like that. But it's just like, it came from the mind of like an 18-year-old that, wanted to write something cool, wanted to write something different, and wanted it to be somewhat like, there's definitely some of me in the character. I'm a twin. I have a twin brother.
Yeah.
And Condrey is definitely like a combination of like my crazy, you remember my brother as a kid.
Yeah.
He's a crazy son of a bitch. And then it's just like me, who like just kind of like did everything that he was supposed to do. And like no one's ever like done me any favors growing up. Like I've had to do everything by myself. I paid for my wedding by myself. Like no one ever got me like my dream job. I had to go in and get it myself, all of these things. So it's just like Condrey is kind of like a victim of like a really shitty situation. And he's had to consistently adapt. And he's so much more than the sum of his parts. And he needs to surround himself with people that are gonna like teach him and show him like what he really is. But those people are just as broken as he is. Because like, I mean, if you read Condrey 1, Sarita is totally broken. She's alone. Her husband's dead.
Right.
Her son doesn't like necessarily like want to be there. He's just there because like that's his mom. He loves his mom.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, this can't be like what like the rest of life is about. Like she wants a reason to continue going.
Yeah.
And it just turns out that like this like 6 foot like 7, 6'9" like behemoth,
homeless, dirty,
you know, is gonna be like the reason for her to, you know, to continue living. He's gonna give her purpose. But he's also like grown up like his entire life without like really like family.
Right.
So it's like they're like a match made in heaven and they don't even know it. And they're so different. They look completely different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they do.
But they're so in sync. So it's just like when I was 18, I was just like hopelessly like looking for people that I could connect with that had the same interests as me. And I couldn't find it until I started college. When I started college, I started to meet people and I started to like really write. But then what happened was I started writing for newspapers and magazines and stuff, and I could never find an artist. So the comic always like kept getting pushed to the side, and then I'd get published in a magazine, or I get published like in the Daily News, or I get pictures published in the New York Times, and it's like all this shit is fucking great. But what about this comic? I'm telling you, every like 3 or 4 years, it would just be like, why can't I find an artist? Like,
I think everybody has a project like that.
Yeah.
You know, that they put on the back burner because they're missing a piece.
Yeah. You know, I remember the first person that drew Condrey, he looked like Cloud Strife. And I was just like, no, this isn't gonna work. This isn't what I want. Oh, he should carry a sword. He should be like a Viking. I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to write it.
Right.
I'm just asking you to draw it.
Condrey's already been created.
Yeah. Like you know, it's like, I just wanted somebody to trust me to tell the story, you know, and to have that type of relationship. And I had another artist that was just like, oh, well, your script, and he's giving me this whole like breakdown. And he worked for Pronto Comics,
okay,
which is kind of like this like DIY like kind of comic book outfit where like no one really gets paid and like And I'm just like, listen, at that point I was an editor at NBC, and I was like, don't talk to me about the writing. If you don't like it, you don't have to work on the comic.
Right.
And he's like, no, I like it, but and I'm just like, so what have you drawn? Well, I haven't actually drawn anything yet, and it's like 4 months, and I'm just like, yeah, we're done.
Right.
You know, and then he's like, oh, you're an asshole, and he showed me some of the stuff that he drew, and I was just like, yeah, that's not what I wanted anyway. You know? And then I got married, and then I had my first kid, and then I posted on Facebook. This was like 2019, early 2019, and I was just like, need an artist. And then my buddy Tommy is just like, oh, I know somebody. And then we started talking. Then we met at a party and we started talking and stuff like that. And like a week went by and he sent me some of the sketches for the characters. And I was like, this is really cool. But he blew me away when he started doing like the cover work and like the panels and stuff. Yeah. Because I love David Mack.
Right.
I love Michael Oeming. I love people that like look at a comic book page and don't say, because like this was the problem the guy from Pronto was giving me. Oh, well, and the thing was I was drawing stuff in storyboard format.
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, there has to be a certain amount of panels on each page and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, says who?
Yeah.
Who the fuck says like that there has to be a certain amount of panels on the page? It's art.
No. Right.
You know, like what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So then like I saw how he laid out a couple of pages and I'm like, there's like no panels in here. Right. This is like, the best word that I could describe the first time I saw his stuff is groovy. Because it's just like your eyes. Yeah, because your eyes, it's like your eyes like you surfed around the page and it was just like, it was like a wave.
Right.
Like your eyes naturally knew where to go. So it's like there weren't panels there, but there were panels there like in your head. Like it's like journalism. I tell my journalism students, journalism is the art of elegantly organized material. And comic book art is the same exact thing.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a great picture, but if you don't have the narration boxes and you don't have the speech bubbles in the right place, it falls out of place.
Right.
You know, so it's just like with his stuff, everything was just put in the right place where there were no words there yet, but I knew where I was going to put the words. Yeah. You know?
I think that's a cue of a really great artist because really he's supposed to point you where you're supposed to look, you know, how the page is supposed to be read. And I think that's great because I've read both issues of Condrey that have come out, and I love the art, you know, I love the fact that there really are no panels, kind of, I mean, there are, but but there's like, I do remember at the top of one page, like you had a picture that was supposed to be in a panel, but it was just open to the rest of the page.
Right. I don't see the need for boxes.
Yeah. Right.
I half the time, you know, splitting it up, sometimes you need it.
Yeah.
Right. But not every time is it necessary. And sometimes it gives that more free flowing. And as long as things are in the correct order, because sometimes it's like, well, it works better if I put this way. I mean, it looks better, but it doesn't tell the story. So you have to kind of work around it. It makes it more interesting for me to draw and for people to read. So
yeah. I mean, it's got to be fun for you too. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So.
I forgot who asked me. It might have been Mark, but after he read Condrey 0, he's like, do you guys plan on having like panels in like any of your comics? And I was just like, eventually, when it's needed.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I learned after like 3 different artists was, after the 3rd artist that I went through, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to turn this into a book. Fuck this.
Like a novel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't need an artist. I'll just get someone to draw a smoking cover, you know, maybe like draw like 10 pictures that I could plaster in certain places, but I'm just going to write this as like a book. So the script that he got was like the beginning of the book. And it wasn't in that structured storyboard format that I gave the other artists. And I don't know if that helped him do the art the way that he did, but
that's like the best way to do it.
Because I just felt like at that point, I had been so structured where I knew exactly what I wanted it to look like, and I wanted the artist to do it exactly this way, that I was just saying to myself, like, this can't be fun for the person doing the art. So then when I saw his stuff, I was like, I had a choice now. I have all of these storyboards. Like, I had like 8 issues written out in storyboard format. Do I give him issue 1 storyboard? Or do I give him like the first like 2,000 words of the novel? And I said, I'm giving this guy the first 2,000 words in the novel.
Like,
and that became Condrey 0. And that's the way that we've worked from, like, so once he finishes, then I'm just like, okay, so then I'll take another chunk of the story. Be like, I think this is like 10 pages. And he'll look, yeah, I could make 10 pages out of this.
See,
and we just make it work.
So that's interesting, because I've read a crap ton of comic scripts, and I noticed that most of the majority of the scripts break it down panel by panel.
Oh yeah,
on what you're supposed to see in the panel.
Yeah.
And you don't like to work like that?
It just makes it, when you read a book, and you get those pictures in your head, right? Like, that's the way it works for me. I mean, yeah, you can write a script and say, okay, in panel 1, it's this, this, and this, and this is what the dialogue is, and all of that can work just fine. And I can work that way, but it just doesn't give you the creativity, you know. It
gives you more freedom to do.
Right. Like, that's telling you what's in each box. So you draw what's in each box. So like I want that creative flow to work better. Like, when you take apart page by page issue 0 and you lay it all out, like, the whole thing has like a nice rhythm to it. Just looking at all 6 pages, it's 6 pages. When you do, like, I don't know if I succeeded on that on issue 1 as much, because there's more dialogue or something like that, where you do get a little bit more boxes and things like that. But, but you know, sometimes that's needed. So it's all about the balance of, you know, what should be seen, versus like how you see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like, the best compliment that he's given me, and he's given me a ton. He's been like a blast to work with.
Oh, this guy's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Was he was like,
you guys want me to leave?
It feels, well, yeah, yeah. Well, actually, no, but he was like, it feels like a movie.
Yeah.
You know. And
it does. It has that feel to it.
I've told Mark before, you know, Mark Brunell, the CEO of Lesser Known. I'm like, your job as a writer, because he's the only other writer for the company besides Charlie. It's your job as a writer to get your artist as hyped up to like draw as possible.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, it's like, if I'm telling you panel by panel what to draw, you might as well work in a sweatshop, that's what you're doing.
True. You're not giving them the creative freedom to draw whatever's on the page.
Right. And literally anyone could do it.
Right.
If you give them,
that much direction.
Yeah. That much direction.
There's so much in Condrey Zero that's like the guy running around in the Easter Bunny costume. And like, but that's like, this is what's going to happen eventually. And I'm telling you're the first person that I ever told that I'm going to tell this, but like, this is totally like a goal of mine that like, once we get enough comics out, I'm definitely going to release like the book version of that. Like, so people are going to see like all of the stuff that's not like in like all the description, all the stuff that you see that no one else sees.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, all right, Kieran, why don't we do this? That one panel, why don't we make that an illustration on the page? Yeah. So it's just like, so you'll get like the first, like we'll release eventually like an omnibus of like the first 10 issues of Condrey or whatever, but then we'll do like the novelized version.
Right.
So people that want to read a book instead of a comic will get that, but they'll also get his art too.
That's great.
So it's just like the comic, so many people are just seeing like the art and I'm guiding his art, but then when we do the novel version, then he's going to be guiding me.
Right.
So it's just like, so I try and I've told Mark this and I've told other people, other podcasts that I've been on, like I write so much. So it's like Condrey Zero. I mean, it's probably like 200 words. It's not a lot of words.
Yeah.
But it's like all of the words are like in his art. It's like he's telling the story that like only he's seen. So that's the thing. It's like such a symbiotic relationship. There's a panel, and I'm sorry for giving this away. There's a panel in the next comic that we're working on where like I didn't even write it, and he drew Sarita holding Condrey's spike bracer, and she's just like touching the tip. Yeah. And I didn't write that.
But I drew it.
But the thing is, like, I could totally see her doing it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I wrote, like, I said, like, she's waiting in the hospital. She's waiting for the doctor to come out, and she knows that she probably should have fed the cats before she left, and her son is probably waiting for her and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm not imagining her sitting there like this, like a can of tuna fish. She's got, she's sitting there. She's got the guy's gun. She's got this and that. Why wouldn't she? So
continuity is very important to me.
Sure.
So
that's good.
Sometimes it's like he writes something and I say to myself, but what about this stuff? And that to me is really interesting. So like, spoiler alert, when the end of issue 1 happens, issue 2 picks up and she's like loading him into an ambulance. Thank you. And so like all this stuff that he probably shouldn't be like, have on him, right. Like she's taken care of. Like she's like you said, she's hiding the gun. She's, right. Like this stuff that, that's evidence. Yeah. So whatever just happened, right. So it's important to me that like she's, fiddling around with, this stuff and holding onto his coat and saying, there could be something here and I should protect him as long as I can until I know what's happening.
Yeah.
And like, that's part of the story that like I'm reading, whether he wrote it specifically or not, it's got to be all there. Yeah. And it is all there,
but it's it's great to work with somebody that like has that much like tender love and care for the story and that like understands the story that I'm telling and isn't just, that's again what I try and explain to people, isn't just drawing what's in the panel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
right. If he wrote panel by panel, you wouldn't have gotten that. I mean, you would get like, Sarita in waiting room, whatever. Like,
and at that point, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And then I could just draw her sitting in a waiting room. That's one. That could be an entire page of just her sitting there.
If that's what I said. Draw it in the panel.
So I did notice that there was compassion between the two characters in number 1. Because you had talked about how you originally wrote Condrey grittier, where, maybe he would call her bitch or whatever, but I remember in 1, he kind of feels bad for what he's about to do.
Yeah.
So, and then once he drops the gun, you know, and she picks it up, she tells him, all you had to do was ask for 2 cans of soup.
Yeah.
You know, so she kind of has compassion for him also, you know, and
he jumps at her. She doesn't have a choice.
Right.
You know, he tells her, like, if I turn around and you're still holding that gun, I'm coming at you. And she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like, it's 2 broken people that like need a reason to live. And this is the thing. He's killed. He's killed plenty of people. We're going to find out all the people that he's killed. But he's killed people that are responsible for the things that have happened in his life.
Right.
You know, it's going to be very much along the lines of like a Hellboy, where it's like you find out like he spent, you know, 6 years of his life in the New York City foster care system. Plenty of crazy shit happened to him, you know, and then being on the streets for as long as he has, and then slowly putting the piece together. So this is the thing. His dad was a wonderful, wonderful police officer, understood the law, and Condrey has kind of like dedicated himself to like understanding the law. So it's like why he's never spent any time in jail, you know? But then also too, he's got something going on, which we're going to find out later in the issues, where like people have tried to hurt him before, but those fights usually don't last very long. Yeah. You know? Because he's an ass kicking machine. Right. He can take a ton of punishment, you know, but most people, so Rita's the first person that's like actually like kind of like broken the wall. So it's like if you guys ever watch 300 before or read 300, when the phalanx, they all get together and they put their shields up. Usually don't break that. You know, like people don't break that. And he's the type of person where it's just like you could stab him and he's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. And he'll come, like he's pretty impervious to pain. And he's not used to like somebody like being able to like kind of crack through his armor and stuff. And the thing is, he doesn't mind like robbing some like piece of garbage to like get his food or whatever, or some, you know, but it's just like, he knows he probably shouldn't be robbing this old lady, but he's just kind of like, it's just some old lady. She's not going to starve. She's like some fat little old lady. I'll scare her. And he says like, he's got 3 bullets. He's like, I'm not going to fire them. But if she thinks that I'm going to fire them, you know, like her perception is my reality. As long as she thinks, then I'll just get the food and I'll go. And there's a scene in the next comic where he says like, he wakes up out of his like, you know, little thing. And he's just like, man, all I wanted was like 2 cans of chunky soup and not to sleep in a place that smelled like piss tonight. Like, that's all I wanted. And what the fuck just happened? You know, so the thing is like, he's intrigued by the fact that like, what is she? You know, because he's starting to put the pieces together and he's just like, because the closer he gets to her, it's like he feels like his brain is on fire. You know, like, he's like, he thinks it's like his intuition. Like, oh no, like, don't do this to this old lady, blah, blah, blah. But it's not that. Because she's more than the sum of her parts too. You know, so it's just like, we start to find out all these things. And these are like, this is like some big homeless guy that you like, this is just some piece of crap. And then you look at her, and she's like the little like mayor of the neighborhood. She knows everyone's business and stuff like that. And she's just like mega chill, you know, and no one ever thinks that she's anything like special and stuff like that. But she's got stuff going on too. So they're just like a match made in heaven.
I love the in issue 0, you guys have a lot of like bio about Condrey, his arrest record, and you know, things like that, the wanted poster. And I love the fact, because you know, we're from the same neighborhood, and I love the fact that you use like things around here, like Bay 25th Street, the 6-2 precinct, you know, so I like stuff like that. Like
it's all in the details.
The address of you don't know this yet. I mean, I gave you the script, but the address where Condrey lived, that was like where his dad died, is the house that I grew up in. Right. You know, when I was like, not the one like around the corner from here, but the one when I was a teenager. And ironically, like the day I signed my deal with LKC, I was on the phone with Mark the entire time, and I walked there. And as I was sitting on the steps, the house is boarded up. Like no one even lives there anymore. It's like,
if you could get me a picture of that house then and now,
I could totally,
amazing.
That would be awesome.
I could totally do it.
So like it's that little things like that are awesome.
A couple great
because like I wrote Condrey in that house, you know, and so like it was just so like it happened naturally. Like I was just talking to Mark, and I remember talking to Kieran, and I'm like, we're gonna get this done like today, like the deal. We're gonna make a deal with this guy, and I just instinctually like walked from 75th Street and 18th Avenue to East 2nd and Avenue F. It's a nice walk.
That's a long walk.
Yeah, and I just found myself in front of the house, and I just sat on the steps, and it's boarded up. It's like no one lives there, and I just sat there, and I was just like, yeah, man, we'll do this comic for you, And so yeah, that's the house that like Condrey grew up in and stuff like that. So that's the house that got invaded. Like that's where Condrey's dad gets killed.
Yeah.
So just like, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I don't even know what we were talking about. But this character, both of these characters, this is definitely like a tag team.
Yeah.
Like it's his story. But as we go on, we're going to find out how important she is in the story. And I already started writing it. I would definitely love to do a one-shot of Sarita.
Just Sarita?
Just Sarita's backstory, how her husband was killed.
Well, she's fun to draw, so.
It's a crazy story. I'll show you the script. It's an insane story, like how her husband was killed and stuff like that. And it kind of like shows us like what her powers really are and stuff like that. So yeah, it's I'm trying to.
So people do have powers in your book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the thing is, it's like there's no
tights.
Yeah, there's no tights. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No capes.
That's the
No
Marvel
capes and tights.
Vertigo in me. Yeah, there's no capes and stuff like that. But it's more along the lines of like, it's definitely powered by science. Like Condrey is definitely powered by science. Like but it's like I stretch things. Yeah. So it's like he's got a medical condition that like certain star athletes that people love, like Shaquille O'Neal and Andre the Giant, have had, and that's the reason why they're 7'4" and 400 pounds and stuff like that.
I get it. Yeah.
But so it's like perfect example. Andre the Giant's body like broke down. He had a pituitary gland disorder, and like by the time he was like 30, his body stopped firing all of those hormones, and his body started to basically break down from the inside out.
Yeah.
But what if his pituitary gland never stopped firing those hormones? What if he continued to be an elite athlete for his entire life?
Yeah.
Like what would happen if you were able to like, it's like Barry Bonds took HGH and he was like in better shape and like at like 40 than he was at like 20. But there was all of those side effects. What if somebody could naturally have a body that functioned that way? So it's not like, oh, a mutant and this and that and da-da-da-da. It's just it's a different take.
There's no metahumans. There's no mutants.
No. It's just a different take on superpowers and stuff like that. There's definitely going to be some other crazy shit that's going on, but it's definitely going to be like, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a little bit more believable. So
More real world.
Yeah.
So when he approached you with Condrey, how did you draw him at first? Like, is he the way you drew him at first? Is that the way he's drawn now?
He's cleaner. Yeah, he's cleaner. The way I originally drew him, a lot of the stuff, it was a little bit more cartoony.
Okay.
So everyone is kind of like, I didn't know exactly what the story was. I mean, he only said like character. He gave me he gave me like a character list and said like this person, like tall, skinny, whatever. So I'm like, so I kind of just sat down with some watercolors and I did it, pencil and watercolor and
just scroll through.
So it's not what you see now. A lot of times, like once I realized like what the story was, it was like, oh, well, this has got to be dark. This has got to be this. So, go heavy on the inks. You go heavy on the, it's dark. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So like Condrey, yeah, he's a bit cleaner. I mean, I went with the same basic outfit. Obviously, it was what he asked for, but it was like, oh, he's got to be shaggy. He's homeless. He wouldn't be.
Gotta be gruff.
Yeah. He can't be like pretty boy. Yeah. I mean, that can happen with time. He meets someone that helps him out, and he, gets to shave once in a while, rather than just pulling out his knife and, trimming off the side so that he can have a little goatee.
That's just real manly, though.
Well, it is. I mean, we'll get to see that, I'm sure. But yeah, so that whole.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Frank Miller because Josh Onimus from the Variant News Source compared you to Frank Miller.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Josh.
that feels
Josh
good.
loved your
loved
your art. Yeah.
Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
You know,
hell
like because Frank Miller is a legend. You know, and you know, I honestly like Condrey has the look and feel of a Frank Miller book, or you know, like a 300. You know, like just something really gritty and that style. It's just it's a really good looking book.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's like I had a podcaster when we first released Zero. He said, I don't know if he meant it as like a compliment or if he was like, I don't know how he meant it, but he goes, it looks really 90s.
Yeah.
And I went,
that's a compliment to me.
yeah, to me it's
Hey man, I grew up reading 90s comic books.
because
So
you're talking Death of Superman, and for me, like the Death of Superman was huge to me.
Yeah.
Huge. But like for me, the biggest ones were the whole Infinity Gauntlet saga, the DC versus Marvel, huge. Maximum
that was
Carnage.
great.
I posted that the other day on Instagram.
Yeah. Maximum Carnage.
Maximum. Yeah.
The Clone Saga Spider-Man stuff. Holy shit, changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you don't know who's Peter Parker. You don't know who Ben. Like you don't know like who's who, and like oh my god, Jackal. Like it was crazy. You know. So like all of those 90 books, I loved.
Infinite Crisis.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. You know, like everyone used to talk so much like shit about 90s Avengers, like because it was like a real low point, like compared to like the 70s and 80s Avengers, which was great, you know.
Right.
But I loved a lot of that stuff, you know, and like I loved even like the bad 90s comics, like Darkhawk. I love Darkhawk, you know. Dan Ketch, like Ghost Rider, like this volume 2 of Ghost Rider. A lot of people say like it's not as good as the Johnny Blaze stuff, but like when Scarecrow kills what's it called, Barbara, like Dan Ketch's sister, I like the first time I read that I almost cried. Like I, you know, like I love 90s comics.
Or when Joker killed Robin. Remember that?
I have that comic.
That was
I still have
didn't
it.
they do like a call in or something?
Yeah,
where you had
yeah,
to
and it
vote?
was so close.
Yeah.
Like the colon was so close. I remember I got I had a hernia operation when that comic came out. And my dad, when I was in the hospital, brought me that comic. And I tore it to shreds because I just read it so many times. Like, I just beat the shit out of it. Like, it was all creased and stuff like that. Like, you got some rated stuff there, which is great. But it's like, it wasn't until my graduate school was right across the street from Midtown Comics. So every day, and this is when Toys R Us was still open in Times Square.
Yep.
Every day, for lunch, I would either go to Midtown Comics and buy comics. And this is like right around the time when Johnny died from Fantastic Four, which was a crazy moment. That was wild. Or I would go to Toys R Us and I would buy a video game. So like Fallout New Vegas came out that year. So it was like a great year to go to graduate school. But it was just like I was getting so many comics. And all the comics I was buying were from the 90s. Yeah. It's just like a huge Spawn. Oh my God. Spawn changed everything for me. Like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, like on Wildcats and stuff. Oh, so good. You have, I was just looking through Hush.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Like amazing. Like I'm looking at some of this stuff. Like Hush was amazing. You know, you got some book that some asshole, the mind's behind the games, whatever. But I mean, so much great stuff came out of the 90s. And maybe it's just because that's like when we were the most impressionable.
Maybe.
But I think there's some great stuff in the 2000s and the 10s and stuff like that. But I just feel like,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think comics nowadays with the big publishers, you know, I think that they're good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know,
just trying
some titles are
super
really
hard.
good.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a difference, and I think you could tell between your guys' book and let's say a DC book.
Oh yeah.
Whereas your book looks more creative in a way. You know? It looks more.
Well, they have formulas. They have to. They have to fit to their style.
But you see, your process is that you actually draw on paper, and you watercolor and you paint your pages.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Everybody nowadays is working digital.
Well, see, I think that's the reason why this man is like beloved in our country.
Right.
Because what happened was
he's actually a traditional artist.
Mark
and
Mark was absolutely floored by Kieran. Yeah. He was like, this guy draws this by hand? Because he saw, because Kieran marks his stuff on top.
Yeah.
Like Condrey 1, page 1, whatever. And he was just like, oh, we're going to keep that on every page. And I was kind of like, but I get it.
Yeah.
Because he's so, like, he's a traditional artist. Like, this is a guy that, like, if he was born 50 years ago, he would be fitting in with those guys. He would be fitting in with, like,
I mean, he's even got the hat,
Yeah. He would be fitting in with, like, what's his name? The guy that did Daredevil. With the C, not Conway. Gene Conlon and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like, he would fit in with them. He would do, like, the same type of work. And they would be like, dude, you using watercolor? Like, if we could go, like, Back to the Future and stuff, David Mack would see his stuff and go, oh, that's the way that I want to draw.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like, so.
Yeah, I probably saw his stuff and I said, that's the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
Actually, the way I work is more like, what's the easiest way to put color on a page? And without finding a computer.
Because he doesn't like to color. It's so crazy.
I don't like to color.
It's crazy.
I mean, I do enjoy using watercolors, but it's usually like, it's just because it is so easy. It's like, oh, you just dip it and you paint and then you move on and there's color on the page and you can just like put it away.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it. And
I think it's just
my
easy
experience
to you and not to everybody else.
Right. Well, I don't know.
It's like when Michael Jordan is jumping through the sky and his tongue is out. He's just like, this is some easy shit. And everyone else is like, how the fuck does he do that? So.
Well, I just, with a computer, every time it's like when I start working on a computer, it takes me like 6 hours to draw like one hand, because every little bit is like, oh, I screwed it up, or oh, that doesn't look right, or whatever. But you sit down in front of a piece of paper and you just kind of draw it. Whatever changes, or like later you look at it and you go, oh, something looks a little off or whatever. You can like fix it, and it's but it's tangible.
Right.
Once it's on a computer, it's I can just continuously erase and redraw and erase and redraw and then you realize you've drawn the same line 4,000 times,
right? And
you haven't moved on to
I've done that.
the rest of the picture. It's just not the way I work. So
yeah, because I think one of the sayings in digital art is that Control Z is going to be your best friend, where it undoes the line that you just did.
See, I didn't even know that. That would actually.
So you draw a line, you hit the button to undo, Control Z, and then you draw it again, you hit it again, you draw, until you get the right line.
See, it's funny too that you guys are mentioning this stuff because it's like I told you, the artist 1 was all like Cloud Strife, and then artist 3 I didn't want it to look like that, but artist 2 was like a digital guy, and it had this totally like anime.
Yeah.
Look. And I feel like so many digital artists are like manga and anime people. And I'm just like, that's not. And I have nothing against anime or manga, but I didn't want it to look like Japanese.
Right.
Like this is like a Brooklyn story. Like it needs to look dirty and, gruff. Like I took a picture on Instagram a couple of months ago of like one of my favorite panels he's done of like the garbage can. And then like Condrey walking. And it's like I ended up finding a garbage can that was like 3 blocks away on McDonald Avenue and 18th. That looked exactly like this. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like that's the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
well, like that's the opening page, and to me it was more important to show that, here's a bunch of trash. Not like I could show you who Condrey is, but why? Yeah. Like here's a trash can.
Yeah.
It's funny because
here's some dirt on the street.
Yeah.
Condrey's just walking away in the background.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't even have to be Condrey.
Right.
Yeah. Like it is, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be like some random guy.
2 months ago, I showed the comic to Hank Kwan at Bulletproof Comics, which is like one of the biggest comic book stores in all of Brooklyn, and he loves it. It's still in his store just like that up in the front of his store, and like I love like everything that Hank has done for us. But he was like, this scene is that Condrey? walking down the block? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, why don't you tell your artist to like put a light so like people see the light on him? I'm like, it's important to know that it's not like that panel. Yeah, it's him, but he's showing like the atmosphere.
Right.
You know, like like you just
it's
said that
about the city, or it's about you know.
So that's the first time I've ever heard him say this, but it's just like in my head, that's exactly what I wanted.
Right.
You know, like
he's setting the tone.
Yeah. Like the city that never sleeps, it stinks on the inside. Like he's showing.
Because Lord knows that there's a bunch of garbage all the time on the street here in Brooklyn.
So then I explained that to Hank, and he was like, "Oh, okay, all right, that's cool." You know. So it's just like. I joke around with him all the time. Like sometimes I feel like we Vulcan mind melded, you know. But it's like he got that from the script that I gave him, because I could have easily been like, in the panel, draw, da 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 da. But it's just like you give somebody more freedom, and you'd be surprised what they turn in. And that's like I'm happy that that's the way that we do this comic, because like I've told that to like the other people at LKC, and I feel like a bunch of people's like artistic structure and style has changed. I feel like we've had a positive impact on the company because of the way that we do business. And I think that's always the most important thing, you know? Yeah. So I think the comics have definitely, I think they've gotten better. I don't think they were ever terrible. I don't think they were ever bad, you know? But I think the artists definitely have more freedom than they had in the beginning. And I think that has a lot to do with the way we work collaboratively.
I mean, that's great, because I don't think artists in the like professional publishing companies, they don't work. I don't think they work so closely with the writers. You know?
Yeah, I think a script just kind of gets sent out.
They just get
and
sent
they say,
script,
"This is
draw this."
Yeah. And then it gets sent to like 3 other people to do the cleanup and do all that other extra stuff, and you kind of lose the original artist when you work that way. I mean,
right.
It looks great, you know. I read everything, but the ability to have all the creativity is all there, which is really, really nice.
That's great. So what's next for you guys? Are you guys working on anything else besides Condrey?
I've given Kieran another script.
And Mark's given me another script.
And Mark's, he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
I think in a perfect world, I would definitely like to get Condrey to the point where it was at least a monthly or bi-monthly book, because I think I have enough story to tell to be an ongoing series. And I would love to do an original graphic novel, like a year. You know
what you guys need? You guys need a cartoon.
Are you going to illustrate?
No.
I think Condrey would be like, because again, Todd McFarlane's a huge influence on me. Spawn is such a huge influence on me.
Yeah, Spawn's got a cartoon.
The Spawn animated series was so goddamn good.
Spawn is fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Condrey could totally be an animated series. I think it could definitely be a TV show. I think we accidentally made him look extremely similar to Charlie Hunnam. Like, it was totally by accident.
You know, it's funny because I didn't base him off of Charlie Hunnam. I based him, well, not based him, but I was looking at someone else. You know, I saw a different actor, and I was like, "Oh, that guy's good."
Yeah.
I like.
Who was it?
Yeah, he's got a little cleft in his lip and everything. I'm like, I started, kind of scratching down what that was, but I don't remember the guy's name. The BBC series of
you lost me. I don't watch BBC.
Yeah, it's a BBC series. The Musketeers.
Okay.
And it's the guy that plays Athos.
Oh, okay.
And he's got long hair, goatee.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like. I mean, it's dark hair.
Yeah.
But when I looked at him, I said, he's not your classic. He's not classically handsome, but he's like a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
And I look at him and I'm like, you know what? That's, if that guy was 3 feet taller, he would be the guy I want to,
Right.
But, oh yeah.
So yeah, I totally see like Charlie Hunnam, Wyatt Kurt Russell's son that plays John Walker in Falcon and
oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Falcon Winter Soldier, the guy that plays John Walker. I totally see some of him in Condrey.
Oh yeah.
So
that's
I love
another
that you
guy.
guys already have casting
Yeah, right.
It's like the movie though. Like I think Chris Hemsworth would be awesome.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Just because star power alone.
Yeah.
So it's like you're gonna see. It's like he nailed it. Like Condrey is not like the best looking guy, but it's just like he's big, mean, tough.
Yeah.
Like women are gonna be.
I mean, you want to use a good looking guy anyway.
Sure.
But it's just yeah. I mean,
once he gets cleaned up and we see more of him, like I think women are gonna be like, oh, this is
yeah,
you know, and like little spoiler.
So you are gonna clean him up a little bit.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Sure. But
Yeah.
I see him.
Right.
This guy right here, right?
Yep. That's exactly who it is.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know.
Tom Burke.
Tom Burke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know. I saw.
Yeah, I see a little bit. I see.
I mean, he's not exact.
No, it's not. But
it's kind of like
the brow.
Yeah, it's kind of that. You know, he's just kind of like even his character in the show is dark and brooding, and
okay,
you know, he's just kind of like.
Especially the beard. You got the beard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the thing, I'll give like a spoiler here. So like I would love one day for like an animated show or a TV show or a movie. But I mean, I have so many connections in the video game industry. I've already told like a programmer, I'm like, listen, if this ever gets to the point where like we're gonna make a video game, you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a video game developer.
I hope it's on Atari.
You'll be surprised.
Commodore.
Yeah. I was talking to a video game developer yesterday, and we were just shooting the shit. And he goes to me, it's a wrestling video game, Pro Wrestling X. And he was like, do you think it would be possible for like people to be holding issues of Condrey like in the stands of the game? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, like, no one's going to get pissed off. And I'm like, it's my IP.
Right.
I'm like, I love you. Like, you're a great guy. Like, do it. You know? And so it's like my books, like the minds behind the games, like are in video games. If you play the Padre, it's in the library and you can take it. It's a selectable item. So like I have the only video game book that's like actually in a video game. It's in 2 video games. You know, the minds behind the shooter games is in the Padre too.
Nice.
You know, so like if you walk into the dining room, it's literally on there. If you have the book, you'll go, oh shit, that's the minds behind the shooter games. Blah blah blah. You know, so it's like I told him yesterday, dude, if you want, I'll send you the cover art. You can put it in the game. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I sent it to him. So that could happen. But eventually the novel. But I definitely want to continue telling the story. I think my first goal is all the stuff that I originally wrote, like those 10 issues. I want all of that stuff to be told.
Yeah.
That's goal number 1. The first goal was to just get something published, to finish, to say, you know what, this fucking comic that I wrote at 18, let's get this done. And we made that happen. Yeah. It happened. Yeah. But now it's like, all right, now let's tell all the story that I had so far. And then once that's done, then I really I would love to do a Sarita one-shot. Would love to, because I just think her character connects. So I definitely think that it's the type of story that like people that don't necessarily like comics would be attracted to, but then people that like comics, that love comics, would appreciate it, because there's a lot of like stories like Wild Rover that Michael Oeming did, and there's like Resident Alien that are about like people and their humanity, you know. And I think that that's like what Sarita has, like as a person. She's just like, she's full of like love and like respect, and she just hasn't gotten a lot of that since her husband, you know, left the earth. And I just think she has an important story that a lot of people can connect to and grow from and learn something from. So I would love to do that. And I have a couple of other scripts that I've sent you, and I have other stuff hanging around that I would definitely love to get done. So I'm definitely building a universe. One of the scripts I sent you, we could totally connect that to Condrey. Like, I'll tell you about it like later. It's not ready yet for the world to. But okay. But like, there's so much. Like, again, I've been building a universe for quite some time. So those are like, for now, let's just continue telling the story. Condrey 2 is going to be awesome. Super happy with the way his inks turned out. The story.
Oh, me too. I'm really excited about how issue 2 came out.
When does that drop?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Oh, wait. July. Yeah.
So a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
So he's working on colors now and stuff.
Yep.
It's already been technically mock lettered, so it's ready to be. Once he finishes the colors, then it's ready to be sent to the letterer. So we're probably a couple of weeks out.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I should be done with colors next week. Yeah, next week.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome to have a comic come out like the week of my birthday. Oh, July 13th is my birthday. Then the Halloween issue, Condrey 3 is going to be awesome. That script's already done. And then there's some crazy shit that goes on in Condrey 3. It's going to be great. And then I sent you the script for Condrey 4, and that's awesome too because that like fully shares the backstory. So like Condrey 0, we know that his father was killed, but in Condrey 4, we actually see his father get killed, and we actually see the man that killed him.
So 4 is kind of an origin?
4 is really like 1.
Right.
Because this is the thing, too. We've been doing
kind of like Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been doing mini comics.
We started in the middle and worked our way around.
Right.
The first 3 mini comics are still like part of like the first issue. So like that's why in its own way, like once we get after Condrey 4, like I'm definitely going to like have a conversation with Mark and be like, we need to collect this into like a book because Condrey 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's really like the beginning. That's like, if you want somebody to like know enough about the character to get invested, you would give them this, you know? So that's kind of like that. Those are like, for me, that's like what's next. So I know Kieran's working on another book with Mark. That looks really cool.
Oh yeah.
Tights.
It's like a Mad Max. I don't know how to describe it.
It's like Mad Max meets Destruction Derby and Twisted Metal.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's going to be a lot of big ridiculous fun, car racing and crashes and explosions and
nice
neat things like that, and which is really fun for me to just do something different, especially because the way my mind works, where I'm like half the time I'm working on something, it's like I can't do this. I just can't work on this anymore. I've done,
you know, burned out.
Yeah. So, and not burnt out in drawing because my solution is to just grab a different sheet of paper and draw something else.
Right.
So, yeah. So it's like, okay, I've drawn Condrey. So, and I've drawn Sarita 70 times. So let's move on and draw someone else. And with this, it's just like, oh, I get to draw a car, which I don't draw, you know, like,
you will.
I mean, right.
I promise.
But like Condrey doesn't drive a car, you know, so issue 2 gets, you know, ooh, look, I drew a police car or something, you know. Like, oh, there's an ambulance in this one.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is that like, since you are always drawing Condrey and whatever other books LKC is giving you, do you ever draw anything just for you? Do you draw anything for fun?
I do. I mean, I do. I do. Let's see. I sketch in my sketchbook a lot.
Okay.
When I have a project to work on, most of my sketchbook looks like me trying to figure things out. Like it's not just like, you know, it's not just Superman or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I just draw Superman or whatever just to try it out, you know, like I don't draw a lot of costume capers, you know?
Right.
But I have, and I do draw a bunch of weird stuff, like just kind of like fun stuff.
Well, that's good. You know, it breaks up the monotony of whatever you're working on, you know. You spend a couple hours working on Condrey, or, you know, and then you just go and draw a squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, over the past, over like the past year, I also, just as an artist in general, I like to do lots of different things. Right. Try building something or try sculpting something or whatever. So over the past year, I did centerpieces for my buddy's wedding.
Oh.
So each piece was a different movie, goofy movie or all Disney themed. So Pirates of the Caribbean and Jungle Book and whatever. Right. So I got to just like throw my creativity into these kind of things, especially when like I was just waiting on, you know, to hear back. We didn't know what was going on. So it was like, I could sit and draw every day, or I could work on these. And, you know, my studio kind of turned into like this cardboard disaster because a lot of the stuff is just like, ooh, I want to build this.
Right.
What do I make it out of? Oh, cardboard, glue, tape, all these like really fun things. But then when you look at it, you're like, that's cardboard? Like, no way.
Yeah.
And it's like super light and you can
That's
kind of
awesome.
toss it around. And
I just want to say too, that was like one of the hardest like moments. Like we finished Condrey 0. Like I would say,
end of 2019,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And then we started pitching in the beginning of 2020, and then like we're waiting on answers, and it was like everyone that we pitched, it was like you have to wait like 6 to 10 weeks on an answer, and then like that 6 to 10 weeks was like COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it's like I get emails every week from Dark Horse, Image, Valiant with their new comics. And it's like I knew things were in a bad spot when I wasn't getting new comics from those companies.
Right.
Like they were not releasing anything. And I'm just like, oh my God, And then I started getting responses back. I got responses from Image and Dark Horse, and they were like, listen, it's good. You've got something really cool here, but we're not accepting anything from new writer artist teams. Which basically to me, because it would piss me off, because I would see like, oh, so and so has a new book, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, ours is better, but they know that they can make money with so and so,
Right.
instead of with us, so we wouldn't get an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I went to Bulletproof and I talked to Hank and I told Hank that like Image like kind of wasn't interested, he was like, they're crazy, and I'm just like, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So that's the thing. I'll always be grateful to Mark for giving us an opportunity.
Sure.
And
we're
gonna run with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to have, like, Mark is great. I mean, he's just kind of like, he loves the whole comic book community and the music community and everything. So it's really nice to have, someone that like totally respects every part of what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, like, a lot of times when you go to those bigger companies, you don't get that. You get, you get, well, that's not how we do it. Or, you sell us this and we sell you that, that it's like this trade-off. And with Lesser Known, it's like, no. It's your art,
Right.
We're going to print it and we're going to make people love it. Or we're going to show it to people and people are going to love it.
Right.
Like the conversations that we've had about like the narrative in the story have just been like, oh, well, instead of saying it this way, why don't we say it like that way? And I'll be like, well, why don't we say it this way? And then, well, what about this? And I'll go, ooh, you know what about this? And we're saying the same thing.
Right.
But we're just trying to say it as like sexy as possible.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll give you an example. At the end of Condrey 0, I had Condrey saying, I'm coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark is like, why don't you say, you'll never see me coming? And I'm just like, oh, all right. And he's just like, really? I'm like, dude, I'll be the easiest person for you to work with ever. Like, if I like something,
Right.
like, I'm not going to bust your balls over 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never see me
Right.
coming. I'm coming. We're saying the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I like that. So let's go with that. So it's just like, that's the type of like synergy that we all have. Like Mark will just be like, well, I understand what you're trying to say here, but why don't you say it? Why don't you try and say it like this? Or I'll go, no, it's better this way. And then he'll go, say it to me. And I'll read it and he goes, yeah, you're right. Or then it'll happen the other way, So like we were having a conversation about Condrey 1, and he was like, oh, I read the script and there was like a double negative here and there. And I'm just like, I've been teaching college English for 15 years. I know what a double negative is, or a split infinitive,
Yeah.
And I was like, Mark, it takes place in Brooklyn. She's an old lady. She's not that educated. Like, split infinitive and the double negative were on purpose.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, okay, cool. And that was like the end of the conversation. Like, if it was Marvel or DC,
Yeah.
they would be like, oh, well, no. And you wouldn't have a choice on how it was
Right.
fixed.
Right.
So-
Well, they would hand it to someone else and the
Yeah.
editor would just be like,
Yeah.
here's how the sentence works. And then
Yep.
they would cross off yours and
Yeah.
hand it on.
I mean, and like from
And you
like,
wouldn't know until it got printed.
there were times, man, I remember when I was at NBC, there would be times when like I would cover SNL, and like if they had a shitty skit, I would just be like, this skit folded flat. It wasn't funny. And I'd quote like what was said and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd go home, I'd go to bed. And as soon as I would wake up, this is when I had my BlackBerry a long ass time ago. I'd take my BlackBerry out and I'd go to the site and I'd refresh it and I'd read my article and I'm like, didn't fucking say that. I did not say that. You know, and they'd be like, oh, it wasn't that bad, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, come on. And Dan, what are we doing? You can't say that it sucks. You're writing for NBC. I'm like, no. I'm reviewing the show. Yeah, but it's the same. You know, we all work together, and I'm like, then we shouldn't be reviewing the show.
Right.
Don't ask me to review the show if I can't be honest with you. I'm like, I sat through 3 dress rehearsals, and 3 times I watched the same skit, and it sucked all 3 times. And I'm being as professional about it as possible. I didn't say that it sucked. I said that it didn't hit the mark. It wasn't funny. I'm quoting the actual lines because I have the script in my hand. Like, I did it professionally. Mm-hmm. Oh, you can't do that. So I'd be like, then I don't want to watch it anymore. You know, so it's just like, I've been on that side of like what it's like to like create art. Because I mean, that's the thing. If you're writing an article, if you're a journalist, that's art to you.
Yeah.
You know, and then just to see it come back and go, wait, what is that? What? You know? Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm working on my 7th book now, and there'll be times when like my editor at McFarlane will be like, oh, well, instead of saying like that the game sold like 1.5 million units, which is like how you would say it, why don't you say that it was a million plus copy seller? And I'm like, because that's not the way video game...
Right, it's not the terminology.
That's not the way gamers speak.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to write it in a way, you know, so it's just like, sometimes you have to explain things. Like Mark isn't like that. Mark is just like, okay. Mark's phrase is kind of like, let's make dope ass shit.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's like, let's make dope ass shit.
Right.
You know, and he hasn't lied to us about that. So,
awesome.
Oh yeah.
So yes, that's been pretty cool.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we have reached the part of the show where it is called the segment of Truth and Justice, where
the segment of Truth and Justice,
where I ask you guys questions from the superhero deck from Pod Decks.
Nice.
So let's get this started. All right. I got the Poddex app open on my phone here.
Nice.
You too can get your own app in the App Store. It's available for both iOS and Android.
So cool.
So I'm going to scroll down to the superhero deck.
Nice.
And pick a card at random. Let's see. All right. What superhero deserves a reboot right now? It was up to you. Which superhero deserves a reboot right now?
Wow.
I mean, in a comic or in a movie, or like what's the like a complete reboot?
Yes, a complete reboot.
That's a great question.
That's a tough question. Because half the time it's like when you read a comic and someone's changed the story, whether you like that story or not, like it changes something. So thinking about, you know, if I rebooted, you know,
I got one.
Green Lantern or something.
That's a good one.
I mean, you can reboot Green Lantern like they had already done, you know. At one point it was like, well, here's how, you know.
Would you erase Ryan Reynolds?
I'm gonna go with Adam Warlock.
Really?
I love that character, and then it's just like they kind of just like he faded away into like nothingness. It's just like, let's bring him back. Let's start him up from scratch. This is the guy that like controlled the whole Infinity Gauntlet. This was an ass kicker,
right?
You know, he was awesome, and I loved his design. Like, he was just a really freaking cool character, and like he was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was gonna say, didn't they
he was in the
showed
comic.
him.
He was a huge part of the comic, and then it's just like when the movie came, it's just like Star-Lord like was like the head of like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, and I'm just like, what happened to Adam Warlock? You know, like.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer.
Oh,
Silver
man.
And I'm not sure if you remember, but this was probably like 2003 when they tried to reboot Silver Surfer. And
in the Fantastic Four movie,
right?
Yeah, but he had a comic book.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were
Yeah.
talking about movie.
It was like
or
the
comic.
volume.
That was the question.
It was like right around that time though.
Oh, okay.
It was probably like a year before that movie came out. And what happened was they released the first 2 issues, and it was like there was like no text, and it was just like Silver Surfer surfing through the galaxy, and it was just kind of like, where the fuck is he going? But he was like in a rush to get somewhere, like something crazy was going on, and it was just like, this is getting really sexy. This is like right around the same time Carlos Way was doing the Venom reboot, which was pretty cool. And that's when like you get like Venomized Wolverine and really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So I was reading both of them at the same time. But then what ended up happening
That was
was
a whole Venomverse.
this is before Venomverse.
Yeah.
Way before. This is like 10 years before.
Oh, yeah.
The artist on this Silver Surfer run just disappeared. And he was only known by like one name. Like I forgot what his name was, but it was like it was one word. And he just like disappeared.
Like
and
Madonna.
something like that.
Cher.
Yeah. like Foreskin, whatever the hell his name was. But then they ended up bringing in another artist, and the series, it was supposed to be an ongoing series, and it only lasted like 4 or 5 issues. And it was just like there was so much potential, So that it was like right around that time I was reading Venom, the Carlos Way Venom. I was reading the Thanos series, and I was reading the Hawkeye series, and they were all great. But it was just like that Silver Surfer one had like the most potential, and it just like completely disappeared. So yeah, Silver Surfer would be amazing.
All right, guys. One more question.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's your favorite superhero gadget?
Ooh. I mean, when I think gadgets, I
You think
of
on Batman. Right?
I think of Batman or
Right.
Forge. Like those are the 2 characters I think of. Because I mean, Forge just kind of says, "Oh, I'll build this," you know, out of whatever. But I mean, Batman's got some really cool. You know what? I got it. The shark repellent that Batman has in Batman 66.
Oh my god.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna be out in the ocean,
Right. Yeah.
You might as well have that on you.
Yeah.
So it has to be a gadget.
A gadget.
It
I
can't
mean,
be
is that a
powered.
gadget?
It says a gadget. Favorite
Shit.
superhero gadget.
Oh man.
It can't be the car either.
Even Spidey's web is
Yeah.
gadgets.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking Sam Raimi and
I
then
mean,
you put it in.
impact webbing changed Spider-Man like forever.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite superhero gadget you guys haven't even seen yet. Condrey's spike.
Oh, gee.
Wait until you see how it's used.
But wait a minute. Is Condrey really considered a superhero?
Oh, you'll of course.
Oh.
Or is he like an anti-hero?
Well, even anti-heroes are.
Yeah, but I would say like he has never killed anyone that like didn't deserve to like be killed.
Yeah.
But he's like more along the lines of like
Until I draw him killing some red. No.
Yeah. So best gadget.
What's it gonna be?
What is it gonna be? It would be Spider-Man's web shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go for sure like Green Goblin's glider or
Well, I
something.
love Green Goblin is like
I mean,
one
is that
of
a gadget? That's like a vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, true.
But think about it. What's Spider-Man? Like I was so pissed in the movies when they made it like organic webs.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It's it's
Tobey
part of the
Maguire.
mutation.
Like, no, because Peter Parker's a fucking scientist. He's a genius
Right.
that he created, and like the webs are made out of like peanut butter and all like these things that he finds around his house and stuff like that. Like that's like the coolest thing in the world. So yeah, I would go with the web shooters.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
This was fun.
The first ever episode of Basement Comics. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah.
If you guys want more of Patrick and Kieran, head on over to lesserknowncomics.com where you can pick up your own issues of Condrey 0 and 1 and
2 is on the way.
2 is on the way.
Yeah. You can also, if you go to patrickhickeyjr.com /books, if you scroll down, the comics are there too, and they link directly to lesser known comics as well. So yeah.
Awesome.
If you go to reviewfix.com, there's a page on there, books by Patrick Hickey Jr. You scroll down. So it's just like we've tried to create so many different places where people could download them. If you go to facebook.com /lesser known comics, we post daily, and there's always links there. The Instagram, Lesser Known Comics, is updated all the time. The Twitter is updated all the time.
There's a lot of great content on all of that.
Yeah. All right, well, great. I mean, there's so many different outlets that they can get the books from, which is awesome.
Yeah,
So,
and hopefully, I mean, things are supposed to get printed more and more. So, I mean, right now only issue 0 is printed, but one should be out hopefully next month. I mean, we're sending to printers this week, that kind of thing. So,
but one is available digitally. Right now.
So, one is 0, 1. All of Lesser Known's digital.
Their first 5 issues.
Yep.
I want to stress too that like digitally, Condrey 0 is 8 pages, and Condrey 0 is 8 pages, and Condrey 1 is like 10. But like the print versions are significantly longer with bonus art.
Right.
They got my sketch pages and all that,
and pages like that, like link to like the other lesser known things. So like when you grab a print version, you're getting like. It's like you're getting your favorite DVD with like all the bonus behind the scenes features and stuff like that. So you really
that's
get
the only
to
way I
see-
buy DVDs.
Yeah. So it's like you mentioned it before, like the crime file, the file, the police file for Condrey and stuff like that. That stuff to me like makes the comic extra special. And when you guys see the stuff that Kieran has drawn for Condrey 1 for the print edition, I mean, it blew me away. I messaged him and I'm like, why don't we do this? And like when he made it come together, I literally was like, it's fucking beautiful. It's literally beautiful, like the way it came out. So yeah, the print versions are definitely the way that you want to go.
Yeah.
Go to your favorite comic book store. Demand that they carry it. If that comic book store owner contacts Mark Burnell will make sure that comic is available in their store.
Awesome.
You know?
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. If you guys like the questions I asked in this episode, you can get your own decks by going to poddex.com and using the code BASEMENT10 for 10% off your purchase.
I'm going there.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Do it.
Sweet.
Hell yeah.
They have a whole bunch of decks. They just came out with another edition, so 5 more decks. Go get them.
I'll have to go through those and just get my mind working on it because I'm not great on the spot. So I think they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So if you buy physical decks on the website, they are unlocked in the app, so you don't have to buy them twice.
That's awesome.
Which is good. So
Hell yeah.
go and get it. And everything we spoke about today is going to be in the show notes, so everybody head down there for all the links to get your own books, get your own cards, and just follow these guys on social media. Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
We'll see you next time, everybody. This week we have on 2 Basement Heroes. From Lesser Known Comics, the creators of Condrey, writer Patrick Hickey Jr. and artist Kieran Quinn.